She was 7 months pregnant, leaning against the cold marble wall of a VIP lounge, and her husband's mistress was telling her to leave. "You're embarrassing him," the other woman hissed, her perfume, a heavy cloud of Baccarat Rouge 540, choking the air. The wife, Elara, clutched her stomach as the mistress grabbed her arm. "I'll have security drag you out." But just as the mistress keyed her headset, the stainless steel elevator doors slid open. It wasn't security. It was the 3 most powerful men in New York City, and they didn't just own the building, they owned the man she was fighting over. The penthouse on the 78th floor of 15 Central Park West was a monument to glass, steel, and silence. Elara Kingsley Vance moved through it like a ghost, her bare feet silent on the imported Italian marble that always seemed to be chilled even in July. This evening, in early November, the cold felt like it was seeping into her bones. At 31, Elara should have been on top of the world. She was the wife of Jacob Vance, the next big thing in tech logistics, and she was 7 months pregnant with their first child. The nursery was a masterpiece of neutral tones and Scandinavian minimalism, overlooking the autumn-scarred canopy of Central Park. But the silence in the apartment was loud. It was the sound of Jacob's absence. Jacob Vance. He was charming, with a quick smile and eyes so blue they seemed engineered. Elara had met him when he was a junior analyst at her eldest brother's firm. She, the quiet art historian with the famous Kingsley name, had been captivated by his ambition, his drive. He wasn't intimidated by her family, or so she thought. He had pursued her with a singular focus that she, used to men who either wanted her family's money or were terrified of her brothers, had mistaken for love. Now, that focus was elsewhere. "He's just stressed, Lara," her brother Sebastian had told her last week over brunch at Balthazar. "This Vance Aero launch is everything to him." "He's never home, Seb," she'd murmured, pushing a piece of brioche around her plate. "And when he is, he's not there." Sebastian, the youngest of the 3 Kingsley brothers and CEO of Kingsley Estates and Hotels, had just given her that look, the one that was equal parts protective and calculating. "Just keep an eye on him, and a closer one on your joint accounts." She'd laughed it off then. Now, standing in their cavernous, empty living room, the advice felt chilling. Tonight was the launch, the culmination of 2 years of work, seed money, and endless late nights. Vance Aero, Jacob's ambitious drone-based logistics company, was having its official unveiling at the Apex Tower downtown. Jacob had been gone since 5 a.m. His side of the bed was cold. Elara looked at herself in the mirror. The pregnancy had been difficult. She was perpetually exhausted, her ankles swollen. Dr. Evelyn Reed at Lenox Hill had warned her about stress, about preeclampsia. She placed a hand on the tight drum of her stomach, where her daughter was currently practicing her kickboxing routine. "It's just us tonight, little one. We have to go support your father." She had picked out a deep sapphire velvet gown, the only thing in her closet that felt elegant and accommodating. As she was fastening a pair of diamond studs, a Kingsley family heirloom, her phone buzzed. It was Jacob. "On my way. Be ready in 10. You are coming, right? Need you." The "need you" felt like an order, not a plea. She sighed, her breath fogging the mirror. She hadn't seen him in 2 days. A car service, a black Cadillac Escalade, idled downstairs. The driver, a man she didn't recognize, opened the door for her. Jacob's usual driver, Miguel, was like family. This new man was cold, impersonal. Jacob was in the back, typing furiously on his phone. He didn't look up when she got in. "Jacob," she said softly. "Elara. Good. You look fine." He finally pocketed the phone. He was wearing a new suit, a sharp, shark skin Tom Ford that she knew she hadn't bought for him. His hair was perfectly coiffed. He smelled not of his usual vetiver cologne, but of something floral and sweet, a woman's perfume, faint but present. "You look very handsome," she tried. "It's a big night." He stared out the window as the car merged into the heavy traffic on the West Side Highway. "Everything I've worked for. Everything we've worked for." "I'm proud of you," she said, resting a hand on his knee. He flinched. It was barely perceptible, a micro-movement. But he flinched. He quickly covered her hand with his, but the gesture was cold. "Just tonight, Elara. I need you to be perfect. Smile, mingle, talk to the investors. Don't look so tired." The words landed like a slap. "I'm carrying your child, Jacob. Tired is rather the point." His jaw tightened. "Just be the asset I know you can be. Okay?" The asset. Not his wife. Not the mother of his child. An asset. She pulled her hand away and turned to look out her own window, watching the lights of the city blur past. The cage, she realized, wasn't just the penthouse. It was the Escalade. It was her marriage. And she was trapped, hurtling towards an event that she suddenly, desperately, didn't want to attend. The baby kicked, a hard, sharp jab against her ribs, as if in agreement. The apex tower was a spear of glass piercing the lower Manhattan sky. The launch party for Vance Aero was on the 101st floor, in a space that was less a ballroom and more an observatory, with 360-degree views of the glittering, uncaring city. The elevator ride was silent and tense. When the doors opened, the sound hit them, a wall of manufactured buzz, clinking glasses, and a string quartet playing a modernized version of a Vivaldi piece. The room was dark, lit by the city lights outside, and the blue uplighting that highlighted massive, sleek drone models displayed on pedestals. Jacob transformed. The cold, distant man from the car was gone. In his place was the visionary. His smile was wide and blinding. He grabbed Elara's hand, holding it up as if they were a team. "There he is!" A man from a venture capital firm clapped Jacob on the back. "Jacob! Marvelous!" A woman in a severe black dress kissed the air near his cheek. Elara was a prop, towed in his wake. He introduced her. "My beautiful wife, Elara." But his eyes were already scanning the room for the next, more important handshake. She clutched her small purse with one hand and her belly with the other, a lifeboat in a sea of sharks. She found a quiet spot near a floor-to-ceiling window, sipping a glass of sparkling water. She watched Jacob work the room. He was electric, magnetic, and for a moment she remembered the man she'd fallen in love with, the ambitious analyst who'd told her, "I'm not going to be one of your brother's drones. I'm going to build the hive." Then she saw her. The woman was tall, in a blood-red dress that seemed painted on. Her hair was a waterfall of perfect blonde, and she moved with the predatory grace of a panther. She was directing staff, holding a headset, clearly running the event. But the way she looked at Jacob, it wasn't professional. She approached him, whispered something in his ear. Jacob laughed, a deep, genuine laugh Elara hadn't heard in months. He touched the small of the woman's back. It was a fleeting, proprietary gesture. But Elara saw it. The entire room saw it. A cold dread, heavier and more toxic than her fatigue, settled deep in her stomach. The woman turned, scanning the room, and her eyes locked with Elara's. There was no recognition, no, "Oh, that's the boss's wife." There was just assessment. A cold, dismissive flick of the eyes, then a small, triumphant smirk. Elara felt the blood drain from her face. She had to know. She waited until the woman was alone, checking a tablet near the bar. Elara walked over, her swollen feet aching on the hard floor. "Excuse me," Elara said, her voice steadier than she felt. The woman looked up, her smile pure, polished ice. "Yes. Can I help you?" "I'm Elara Vance, Jacob's wife." The woman's smile didn't waver. "Of course. I'm Chloe Bennett, head of PR for Vance Aero. It's so lovely to finally meet you. Jacob has told me almost nothing about you." The insult was deliberate, wrapped in a veneer of corporate sweetness. "You've done a wonderful job with the event," Elara said, refusing to take the bait. "Oh, Jacob and I make a fantastic team. We just click. Creatively. And, well, in every other way." Chloe leaned in, as if sharing a secret, though her voice was loud enough for the bartender to hear. "It's all about synergy, you know. You can't fake synergy." The scent Elara had smelled in the car, the floral sweet perfume, wafted from her. It was Baccarat Rouge 540, a $400 bottle of perfume, on a PR salary. "I'm sure," Elara said. A sudden sharp pain shot through her lower back. She winced, bracing herself against the bar. Chloe's eyes flicked down to Elara's hand on her belly, and her expression, for 1 millisecond, was pure venom. "Oh dear, you look pale. Pregnancy doesn't seem to agree with you. Jacob hates weakness, you know. He needs a partner, not a patient." Elara felt the room spin. Who are you?" Chloe laughed, a tinkling, awful sound. "I'm the one who sourced the $200 million in Series B funding. I'm the one who got him the Forbes cover. I'm the one who's been sleeping in his bed for the last 6 months, while you've been, well, nesting." The confession was so blatant, so brazen, that Elara couldn't process it. She just stared, her mouth half open. "Don't look so shocked, darling," Chloe whispered, her red-lacquered nail tapping Elara's hand. "He's just waiting for the project to be finished before he files the papers. He didn't want the stress to, you know, complicate the delivery." She was talking about the baby. The delivery? Elara felt a wave of nausea so profound she thought she would be sick right there on the polished floor. She turned, stumbling away, pushing through the crowd. She needed air. She needed to get out. She found a corridor marked Private Founders Lounge. Her keycard, the one Jacob had given her, beeped green. She fell into the room, collapsing onto a plush velvet sofa. The room was empty, silent, and dark. She was shaking, not from anger, but from a bone-deep, seismic shock. Her entire life, the last 5 years, was a lie. The man she loved, the father of her child. "He's just waiting. Files the papers." She was crying, silent, hot tears streaming down her face. She fumbled for her phone. She didn't know who to call. Her brothers? What would she even say? "My husband is a monster, and I'm a fool." She put her phone on the table. She just needed to breathe. She needed to think, not for herself, for the baby. The door to the lounge hissed open. Elara looked up, wiping her eyes, expecting Jacob. It was Chloe. She stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the party lights, her arms crossed. The icy smile was gone. Her face was hard, impatient. "He's about to give his speech," Chloe snapped. "And he can't have you out here, looking like a mess. You need to leave, now." The silence in the Founders' Lounge was thick, broken only by the distant, muffled thud of the party's bass line. Elara stared at the woman who had just detonated her life. "Leave?" Elara's voice was a hoarse whisper. "This is my husband's event. I'm not going anywhere." Chloe took a step into the room, letting the door slide shut behind her. The click of the magnetic lock echoed in the small space. "No," she said, her voice dropping to a low, dangerous purr. "It's our event. Jacob's and mine. You're just the unfortunate complication." The legacy, wife. Elara used the arm of the sofa to try and push herself up. The baby was pressing against her lungs, making it hard to breathe, and the back pain was intensifying. You are his employee, Miss Bennet. You're delusional. Am I? Chloe walked further into the room, her confidence radiating. She was a picture of modern power, sleek, ruthless, and beautiful. I'm the one who's been living in your penthouse half the week. I'm the one who picked out that Tom Ford suit. I'm the one who knows he hates the way you pretend to understand his work, the way you use that baby-soft voice. Every word was a precision strike. Elara flinched, the truth of the small, personal details hurting more than the grand betrayal. He wants you gone, Chloe continued, stopping just feet from the sofa. He's just too weak to do it himself. He was going to wait until after. Well, it was born. But you're making a scene. You look pale. You're crying. The investors are noticing. You are a liability. Get out, Elara said, finding a sliver of steel in her own voice. Get out of this room. Chloe laughed. You don't get to give orders, Elara. You're a relic. Do you really think he's going to build his empire with you? A tired, swollen, emotional wreck. He needs a partner, a shark, like me. He's my husband, Elara finally cried out, the denial cracking. He's my future, Chloe shouted back, her polished veneer finally breaking. The raw, desperate ambition was terrifying. And you, and that thing, are not getting in my way. She gestured to Elara's stomach. The casual cruelty of it stole Elara's breath. I'm not leaving, Elara said, her hand protectively, instinctively, covering her belly. If you want me gone, you'll have to get Jacob. Fine. Chloe's eyes narrowed. I'll do it myself. He told me to handle you anyway. She took a step forward. Elara tried to stand again, a jolt of panic and adrenaline surging through her. Don't you touch me. Or what? You'll cry on me? Chloe reached out and shoved Elara hard, back onto the sofa. It wasn't a brutal push, but Elara was off balance and pregnant. She fell back awkwardly, a sharp, white-hot pain shooting from her lower back, and she cried out, more from shock and fear than pain. I said, leave, Chloe hissed, standing over her. Or I'll have security drag you out. I'll tell them you're a drunk, unhinged gate-crasher. Who do you think they'll believe? The head of PR or the hysterical, pregnant woman? Elara was trembling, her mind racing. This couldn't be happening. She looked at the woman's merciless face, the sheer, glittering hatred in her eyes. Chloe wanted to hurt her. Please, Elara whispered, the fight draining out of her, replaced by a cold terror for her baby. Please, I don't feel well. I need a doctor. You need an exit, Chloe scoffed. She lifted her hand to her ear, tapping the headset she still wore. Security, this is Bennet. I'm in the Founders' Lounge. We have a trespasser, a disturbed woman claiming to be Mrs. Vance. She's becoming violent. I need an extraction now. Elara just stared, horrified. Violent? Trespasser? Chloe turned back to Elara with a look of final, triumphant pity. It's over, Elara. The future is here, and you're not in it. Elara squeezed her eyes shut, a fresh wave of tears burning. She heard the ding of the private elevator arriving at their floor. She heard the slide of the stainless steel doors. This is it, she thought. They're going to drag me out. She braced herself, her arms wrapped around her stomach. The footsteps that entered the room were heavy. Not the light tread of party security. These were solid, purposeful, expensive leather-on-marble footsteps. Miss Bennet. The voice was not a security guard's. It was deep, Arctic cold, and carried an authority that vibrated in the air. Chloe, who had been preening, froze. Her back went rigid. She turned, slowly. Ilara opened her eyes. Standing in the doorway were not 2 security guards. There were 3 men. Alexander Kingsley, the eldest. His Patek Philippe watch glinted under the dim light. As CEO of Kingsley Capital Partners, he was one of the most feared men on Wall Street. His face was granite. Mark Kingsley, the tech genius, CIO of Apex Innovations. He was leaning against the door jamb, already looking at his phone, his expression one of bored, lethal calculation. And Sebastian Kingsley, the media and property magnate. He was the charming one, but his smile was gone. His eyes, the same blue as Ilara's, were fixed on Chloe with a look of utter contempt. Mr. Kingsley, Chloe stammered, her face draining of all color. I wasn't expecting. Jacob didn't say you were. He didn't know, Alexander said, his voice quiet. He didn't look at Chloe. His eyes went straight to his sister, crumpled on the sofa, her face stained with tears. Lara. His voice softened for a fraction of a second. Are you hurt? Alex, she whispered, and the dam of her composure broke. Alexander's gaze lifted from Ilara and settled on Chloe. You have 5 seconds, he said, to explain why my 7 months pregnant sister is on a sofa, crying, and why you had your hand on her. The shift in the room's atmosphere was instantaneous. The air, moments before, filled with Chloe's toxic triumph, was now vacuum-sealed, heavy and cold. The 3 Kingsley brothers didn't just enter a room, they conquered it. Chloe Bennett, the shark, was suddenly a goldfish in a tank with 3 great whites. Mr. Kingsley, there's been a terrible misunderstanding, Chloe sputtered, taking an involuntary step back. She was trying to reassemble her corporate mask, but her hands were shaking. Mrs. Vance, Ilara, she's not well. She's hysterical. I think she's been drinking. My sister doesn't drink. Mark cut her off from the doorway, not even looking up from his phone. She's also, as you've noted, pregnant. So I'd stop talking. Alex, she pushed me, Ilara whispered, the words trembling. She said she and Jacob. She said I was a liability. Alexander's head snapped back to Chloe. The look in his eyes was not anger. It was something worse. It was the calm, methodical look of a man deciding which asset to liquidate first. You put your hands on her. It was a statement of fact, each word a hammer blow. No, I was helping her. She stumbled. Chloe was frantic now, her eyes darting between the 3 brothers, looking for an ally where there was none. She's confused. Jacob will tell you. He'll explain everything. Oh, I'm counting on it, Sebastian said, finally stepping fully into the room. He walked over to the minibar, picked up an unopened bottle of Voss water, and brought it to Ilara. Here, Lara, drink. He helped her sit up, his presence a solid, reassuring wall. Jacob, I need Jacob, Chloe demanded, reaching for her headset again. You'll see him soon enough, Alexander said. Sebastian, call Dr. Reed. Tell her we're meeting her at the Lenox Hill ER. We're taking Ilara. No, Chloe shrieked, her composure shattering. This is my event. This is my launch. You can't just... Who do you think you are? The 3 brothers stopped. They turned to look at her as one. Who are we? Sebastian let out a short, incredulous laugh. Miss Bennett, you are standing in a building owned by Kingsley Estates. You are at a party for a company, Vance Aero, which was funded entirely by Kingsley Capital Partners. You are using proprietary guidance software designed by my company, Apex Innovations. Mark finally looked up from his phone. To be precise, he said, his voice clipped and devoid of emotion. Vance Aero was funded with a $250 million seed investment from KCP, contingent on a majority stake held by a blind trust. A trust that, as of 9:05 p.m. tonight, I can confirm we control. My brother Alexander is the board. Ilara stared, confused. What? Alex? You're the investor? Jacob told me it was a silent group from Singapore. It was, Alexander said, his eyes still locked on Chloe. We are the silent group from Singapore, and Tokyo, and London. Jacob was our rising star. We wanted to give him just enough rope to see what he'd build, or if he'd hang himself. Chloe's face was sheet white. She understood. This wasn't just a family dispute. This was a corporate execution. But the Series B, she stammered. The $200 million I raised. You didn't raise it, Mark said. You were guided to it, to another one of our shell corporations. We've been watching the money, every single dollar. The elevator dinged again. This time, two stone-faced men in crisp black suits, actual security, part of Alexander's personal detail, stepped into the room. Miss Bennett, you're trespassing, Alexander said calmly. These gentlemen will escort you out. No, you can't. Chloe looked desperately at the door, as if expecting Jacob to burst in and save her. The door did burst open, but it was Jacob. He was flushed, his bow tie slightly askew, a champagne flute in his hand. Chloe, what's taking so... He stopped dead. His eyes widened, and the champagne flute slipped from his fingers, shattering on the marble floor. The color drained from his face, even faster than it had from Chloe's. Alex. Mark. Seb. He looked at his wife, crying on the sofa. He looked at Chloe, pale and terrified. He looked at the two security men. The visionary evaporated, leaving a terrified little boy. Jacob, Alexander said, his voice dangerously soft. You have a lot of explaining to do, but first, you're going to apologize to my sister. Then, you're going to tell us all about the Kestrel account. Jacob Vance's knees visibly buckled. The name, Kestrel, had hit him like a bullet. He didn't even look at his wife or his mistress. He just stared at his brothers-in-law. I can explain, he whispered. Good, Mark said, tapping on his phone. The NYPD fraud detectives downstairs are very eager to hear it. The name Kestrel hung in the air, heavier and more toxic than Chloe's perfume. It was the kill shot. Jacob Vance, who had commanded a room of hundreds just minutes before, seemed to shrink inside his $8,000 Tom Ford suit. Kestrel, that's a contingency fund, a project diversification. A project diversification, Mark echoed, pushing off the wall. That's a creative name for an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. An account registered not to Vance Aero, but to a J. Vance and a C. Bennett. An account into which you've been siphoning 10% of our investment capital for 18 months. Ilara's head swam. It wasn't just an affair, it was this. A massive, calculated theft. She looked at Jacob, truly saw him for the first time. The charm, the ambition, it was all a facade. He was a common thief in an expensive suit. You told me it was a bonus pool, Chloe shrieked at Jacob, her panic turning to rage. She saw the ship sinking and was desperately trying to find a lifeboat. You told me it was legal, a golden parachute. Shut up, Chloe, Jacob snarled, his eyes wild. He turned to Alexander, his hands raised in a gesture of supplication. Alex, please. It was a mistake. The market was volatile. I was securing our position. I was going to pay it all back. Pay it back from where, Jacob? Alexander asked, walking slowly toward him. From the $1.2 million you spent on a condo in Miami? From the $500,000 wire transfer to a private jeweler in Antwerp? Or from the lease on the new McLaren 720S registered to Miss Bennett? Every word was a nail in the coffin. Mark, the tech CEO, hadn't just found a back door. He'd built the entire house. He had been tracking their digital and financial footprints for months. The Kingsley brothers had suspected Jacob's ethics for years, but his ambition had been useful. Until it wasn't. "You've been investigating me?" Jacob whispered, horrified. "We investigate everything we own," Sebastian said coolly from beside Ilara. "And we own you, Jacob. We have since the day you signed the first round of funding. The morals clause in your contract was extensive." This was the true twist. The affair wasn't the discovery. It was merely the final, vulgar symptom of the disease they were already treating. They hadn't just arrived. They had been in a command center on the 90th floor all night, with a team of forensic accountants from Sullivan and Cromwell watching their trap spring. They had been alerted by their security team, not that Ilara was in trouble, but that Chloe had entered the private lounge, and they'd come to watch the final act. "And you," Alexander said, finally turning his full, icy attention back to Chloe. "You weren't just a mistress. You were an active co-conspirator. Wire fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy." "No," Chloe cried. "He made me. I signed what he told me to sign. I loved him. He promised me. He promised he'd leave her, and we'd be—" "You'd be what?" Sebastian asked, his voice dripping with disdain. "Mrs. Vance. You thought you could replace a Kingsley. With our money," Chloe crumpled. The audacity, the arrogance, the shark mentality, it all dissolved in the face of true generational power. She was an amateur playing in a game so far above her head she couldn't even see the rules. "Alex, please," Jacob begged, his voice cracking. "Think of Ilara. Think of the baby." It was the worst possible thing he could have said. Ilara, who had been watching this all unfold in a state of numb shock, felt a sudden, sharp, searing pain. It was not like the backache before. This was a vice, clamping down on her abdomen. She gasped, her hand flying to her stomach, her eyes wide with terror. "Lara!" Sebastian was at her side in an instant. "What is it?" "The baby. Seb, it hurts. It hurts." Alexander saw it. His face, which had been cold and calculating, instantly flooded with panic. "Get her up, now. Get Dr. Reed on the phone. Tell her we're coming in hot. Code 1. The two security men moved, no longer focused on the white-collar criminals. Sebastian and one of the guards gently, expertly, lifted Ilara from the sofa. "Jacob." Alexander's voice was low, shaking with a rage that was suddenly, terrifyingly personal. "You did this. If anything happens to her, if anything happens to that baby." He didn't need to finish the threat. Just then, two uniformed NYPD officers stepped out of the elevator. Not party security. The real thing. They had been waiting in the lobby, called by Mark an hour ago. "Jacob Vance, Chloe Bennett," one of the officers said, his voice flat. Jacob and Chloe stared, dumbfounded. The party, the launch, the millions. It all vanished. There was only the lounge, the brothers, the police, and the consequences. "Alex," Jacob whispered, one last, pathetic plea. Alexander didn't even look at him. He was already moving with Sebastian and Ilara toward the elevator. "Mark, handle this. I want them crucified. I want their names erased from every registry in this city. I want them gone." "Consider it done," Mark said, straightening his tie as he gestured for the officers to come forward. As the elevator doors began to close, the last thing Ilara saw was Jacob Vance, the next big thing, being read his Miranda rights. Chloe Bennett was sobbing, her hands held behind her back, the blood red of her dress clashing horribly with the stainless steel of the handcuffs. The doors slid shut, and Ilara fell into the darkness, cradled by her brothers, the world fading as the pain consumed her. The ride to Lenox Hill Hospital was a blur of sirens and flashing lights. Alexander had used his contacts to get a police escort, clearing the dense Manhattan traffic as if by magic. Sebastian sat in the back of the customized Mercedes Maybach with Ilara, holding her hand, his other hand on the phone with Dr. Evelyn Reed, calmly relaying Ilara's symptoms. Contractions are 3 minutes apart. She's spotting... Yes, 31 weeks. We're 5 minutes out. Ilara was fading in and out of consciousness, her mind a terrible swirl of Chloe's voice, Jacob's shattered face, and the all-consuming rhythmic pain. The baby. Seb. Is the baby? The baby's fine, Lara. You're fine, Sebastian soothed, his voice a balm of confidence he didn't feel. Alex has the best team in New York waiting for you. Just hold on. When they arrived at the hospital's private emergency entrance, a full neonatal trauma team was waiting. Ilara was transferred to a gurney, and Dr. Reed, a sharp, no-nonsense woman in her 50s, was already giving orders. She's in preterm labor. Get her up to maternity. I want 2 grams of magnesium sulfate to start, and a beta-methasone shot for fetal lung development, stat! They wheeled Ilara through the corridors, and the brothers were forced to stop at the double doors to the L&D ward. She's in the best hands, Mr. Kingsley, Dr. Reed said to Alexander. We'll do everything we can to stop the labor. Now please, let us work. The doors swung shut, leaving Alexander and Sebastian alone in the sterile, fluorescent-lit hallway. The sharks, the titans, were gone. They were just 2 terrified older brothers. He could have killed her, Sebastian said, his voice raw. He slammed his fist against the wall, a rare crack in his composure. All this time, that parasite. He'll pay, Alexander said. His voice was quiet, but it held the weight of a death sentence. He pulled out his phone. Mark, status. In custody, Mark replied, his voice tinny over the speaker. The party is cleared. Technical difficulties. Our legal team from Sullivan and Cromwell is with them now. The DA is fast-tracking the fraud charges. They're not getting bail. Good. Now, the other part. Already in motion, Mark said. I'm with the Vance Aero Board, the real board. We've invoked the Morals Clause and the Gross Misconduct Clause. Jacob is terminated, effective immediately. We're seizing all company and personal assets tied to our funds. That includes the penthouse, the cars, and the joint accounts. What about Ms. Bennett? Alexander asked. She's singing, trying to pin it all on Jacob to save herself. Wachtell Lipton, her new pro bono counsel, is trying to cut a deal. She'll likely get a lesser charge in exchange for her testimony. But her career? It's over. I've already made the calls. She'll be lucky to get a job writing menus for a diner in Delaware. Good. Alexander hung up. The immediate threat was neutralized. The empire that Jacob Vance had tried to build on their foundation had been condemned, demolished, and cleared away in less than an hour. Back at the apex, Mark Kingsley stood alone in the dark, empty ballroom. The sleek drone models were just plastic shells. The champagne was warm. He looked out over the city. He'd just dismantled a $250 million company and 2 lives before the ice melted in his drink. He felt nothing but a cold, clean satisfaction. He sent a text to his PR team, headquartered in London. Spin is this. Kingsley Capital uncovers major internal fraud at subsidiary. Swift, decisive action taken. Protects investors. Vance is the solo villain. Bennett is a footnote. Ilara's name is to be kept out of every report. She is a Kingsley relative, unnamed. Understood. The reply was immediate. Yes, sir. The fall was complete. It would be a 2-day story in the Wall Street Journal's financial crimes section. And then, nothing. Jacob Vance and Chloe Bennett would cease to exist. Hours later, the double doors at Lenox Hill opened. Dr. Reed emerged, pulling off her surgical cap. Alexander and Sebastian were on their feet instantly. "The magnesium sulfate is working," she said, her voice tired but firm. "We've managed to stop the contractions for now. The baby's heartbeat is strong. Ilara is stable." The brothers slumped in relief. "But," she continued, "she's not out of the woods. The stress, the physical altercation, it caused a placental abruption. A small one, but it's there. She is on absolute, mandatory bed rest until this baby is born. She can't go home. She's with us for the long haul." "Whatever it takes," Alexander said, his voice thick. "We want the best room, the best private nurses, whatever it costs." Dr. Reed nodded. "She's asking for you." They found her in a large, private suite overlooking the East River. She looked small and frail against the white hospital sheets, IV lines snaking into her arms. But she was awake. And she was, for the first time in years, clear-eyed. "He's gone, isn't he?" she whispered. "He's gone, Lara," Sebastian said, smoothing her hair. "He can't ever hurt you again." Ilara closed her eyes. You knew he was like this." "We suspected," Alexander admitted, his voice rough. "We didn't know this. We didn't know about her. We thought he was just a bad investment. We were just trying to protect the family's assets." "I was an asset," Ilara said, a single tear rolling down her temple. "Just like he said." "No!" Alexander's voice was fierce. He gripped her hand. "You are not an asset. You are a Kingsley. You are our sister. I let my business sense get in the way of my family. I let you marry him, even when my gut screamed against it. I thought I was protecting your happiness by letting you have your choice. I failed you, Lara. And that will never happen again." It was the closest to an apology Ilara had ever heard from her eldest brother. She looked at her two brothers, the financier and the hotelier, shadows of the boys who used to pull her hair and check for monsters under her bed. "I'm not going back to the penthouse," she whispered. "You're not," Sebastian said with a small smile. "I've already got a team moving your things. The penthouse is being seized. All his suits, his ridiculous art, all of it. Your personal items, your clothes, the nursery. It's all being moved to the new Kingsley Tower residences. The duplex. The one with the garden." Ilara started to cry again, but this time it was from relief. "Thank you." "Rest, Ilara," Alexander said. "You have one job now. You and this baby. We'll handle the world." She nodded, her eyes drifting shut, finally safe. The next 2 months were an exercise in quiet patience. Ilara's world shrank to the 4 walls of her luxury hospital suite, which Sebastian had quickly redecorated with art from her own collection, soft linens, and a state-of-the-art sound system. Her life was measured by the rhythmic beep of the fetal heart monitor. The outside world, however, moved at a brutal pace. The case of the People vs. Jacob Vance was swift. Faced with irrefutable data from Mark, testimony from a terrified Chloe Bennett, and the full weight of the Kingsley legal team, Jacob's counsel at Paul, Weiss advised him to take a plea. He pleaded guilty to 2 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of aggravated embezzlement. His sentence was 8 years in federal prison. Chloe, for her cooperation, received 2 years probation and a $100,000 fine, which her parents had to pay after her assets were seized. She was blacklisted, as Mark had promised. The last Ilara heard, Chloe had moved back to her hometown in Ohio, her name synonymous with a spectacular and pathetic fall from grace. Ilara's divorce was finalized in a closed hearing. She signed the papers from her hospital bed, reverting to her maiden name, Ilara Kingsley. The name felt like armor she was putting back on. Her brothers were a constant presence. They rotated their schedules, trading multi-billion-dollar meetings for quiet hours by her bedside. Alexander would read the Wall Street Journal aloud, his voice a gravelly monotone that she found surprisingly soothing. Mark, the tech wizard, had personally redesigned her fetal monitor to link to an app on her phone, explaining the data with geeky enthusiasm. Sebastian brought her gossip, books, and blueprints for the new brownstone he was having renovated for her in the West Village. Just in case the tower is too sterile. They didn't talk about Jacob. They talked about the future. "I want to go back to work," Ilara announced one snowy afternoon in late December. "Done," Alexander said, not looking up from his paper. "I'll fund a new gallery for you. Soho or Chelsea?" "No," Ilara said firmly. "No more funding. No more Kingsley money. I want to restart my consultancy, art acquisition for private clients. I have my contacts from my Sotheby's days. I can do it on my own." Alexander finally lowered the paper. He looked at her. Truly looked at her. The pale, tired asset was gone. Her eyes were bright, her jaw set. She was a Kingsley again. "Fine," he said, a rare smile touching his lips. "But you're using our accountants. I'm not having you waste money on bad tax advice." On the 3rd of January, at 39 weeks, healthy and full term, Ilara gave birth to a daughter. She was small, with a tuft of dark hair and the signature Kingsley blue eyes. Ilara held her, overwhelmed by a love so pure and fierce it eclipsed all the pain of the past year. "What's her name?" Sebastian asked, standing by the window, the morning light hitting his face. "Athena," Ilara whispered, kissing the baby's forehead. "Goddess of wisdom and war. She's going to need both." "Athena Kingsley," Alexander said, testing the name. He reached out one large finger, and the baby's tiny hand grasped it. A look of profound, terrified tenderness crossed the financier's face. "Welcome to the family, Athena. You have no idea what you're in for." 6 months later, sunlight didn't just enter the parlor of the Bank Street brownstone. It was a permanent resident, invited in by floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked a quiet, tree-lined garden. The cold, sterile white marble of the 15 Central Park West penthouse was a distant memory, replaced by the warm, wide plank oak floors, the scent of old books, and the faint, sweet smell of baby powder. The walls were covered in art Ilara loved. Not art Jacob had chosen for its investment value, but pieces that spoke to her, a chaotic, joyful Joan Mitchell print, a series of pensive, preparatory sketches by Egan Schiele. This was not a cage. It was a home. Ilara Kingsley, dressed in a crisp linen pantsuit that was both elegant and practical, balanced her 6-month-old daughter, Athena, on her hip. She was pacing her home office, a phone pressed to her ear, a look of focused intensity on her face. "Mr. Al-Jamil, I'm telling you it's a fake," she said, her voice firm, carrying the easy authority of someone who knows they are right. "A very good one, I'll grant you. The provenance documents were expertly aged, but the pigment analysis from my lab contact in Brussels confirms it. The specific shade of cobalt blue wasn't synthesized until 1958. De Kooning finished that piece in 53. She paused, listening. Athena gurgled and grabbed a fistful of her mother's dark hair. Ilara winced, but didn't break her concentration. "Exactly. The seller is leveraging the name and hoping for a quick emotional buy. Now, the Twombly sketch I sent you, that is your play. It's undervalued, the last owner was impeccable, and I can get it for 20% under auction estimates. Trust me. You want the Twombly." She listened again, then smiled. Of course. I'll have the acquisition papers drawn up. A pleasure, Mr. Al-Jamil. She ended the call and kissed Athena's head. And that, little one, is how you save a client $2 million before 10 a.m. Her art consultancy, Kingsley and Associates, which she had incorporated from her hospital bed, was already one of the most sought-after private acquisition firms in the city. She had built it on her own terms, with her own contacts, and on the solid bedrock of her own undeniable expertise. The doorbell chimed. Ilara glanced at the clock. 10:01 a.m. Right on time, she murmured. The circus is arriving. The front door opened to the familiar chaotic sound of the three most powerful men in New York arguing about who had carried the largest, most obnoxiously expensive gift bag from the car. I'm just saying, Sebastian, a stroller made of carbon fiber is unnecessary. It's about aerodynamics, Mark, and it's lighter than your ridiculous, smart bassinet. Both of you are amateurs. She's 6 months old. She doesn't need a stroller. She needs a diversified portfolio. Sebastian, the charming one, swept in first, impeccably dressed. Ilara, darling, you look productive. He kissed her cheek, then immediately took Athena, expertly tucking her into the crook of his arm. And you, my perfect little angel. He presented his gift, a tiny, impossibly soft, cream-colored Hermes blanket. Cashmere, of course. Her skin is so sensitive. Oh, he added, pulling an embossed envelope from his jacket. And I've submitted her preliminary application for the Spence School. Ilara stopped. Seb, she's 6 months old. She can't even sit up on her own. And the waitlist for the legacy waitlist is already 3 years long, darling. I'm just being practical. We can't have a Kingsley going to just any preschool. Think of the networking. Before Ilara could argue, Mark brushed past him, already scanning the room's tech. Your Wi-Fi is lagging by 0.8 milliseconds. It's offensive. I'll have my team install a dedicated fiber line. He produced a sleek, white box. And this. I call it the Cradle 2.0. It's a full biometric feedback system. He unlatched a small white sensor. It syncs to your phone, monitors humidity, core temperature, and digestive enzymes. Mark! Ilara cut him off, laughing as she took the box. Stop trying to optimize my baby. She is not a startup. She does not need a Series A funding round. I have a revolutionary system for monitoring her digestive enzymes, too. It's called a nose. It works just fine. It's inefficient, he grumbled, but he was already looking at Athena with a rare, soft smile. Alexander entered last, the quiet eye of their storm. He nodded at his brother's haul of gifts with faint disapproval, kissed Ilara's forehead, and then just looked at Athena. He was still, and would always be, slightly terrified of her. And you, Alex, Ilara prompted, shifting Athena back to her own hip. What did you bring her? A hostile takeover of her playgroup? Better, Alexander said, his voice dry. He held up his phone. A spreadsheet. He turned the screen to her, showing a complex projection of Athena's trust fund. I've rebalanced her portfolio. We've divested from the volatile domestic tech funds. Too much exposure. I've moved the capital into a renewable energy fund in Norway and some blue-chip European staples. At her current 7% compounding annual return and factoring in inflation, she will be a self-sustaining billionaire by age 45. He paused, a flicker of a smile playing on his lips. Assuming, of course, she doesn't go into art history and develop a conscience. Ilara looked at them. The financier, the tech wizard, the media magnate, her brothers. They were overbearing, overwhelming, and utterly ridiculous. And they were, without question, the loves of her life. The old Ilara, the timid wife living in Jacob's shadow, would have been flattened by their collective intentions. The new Ilara just smiled and managed them. "Thank you, all of you. It's a lot, as usual. Now we are all going to the park, and you are all forbidden from discussing market caps, prep school wait lists, or biometric data for 1 full hour. Understood?" "Fine," Sebastian sighed. "But I'm pushing the stroller, the one I bought." They were in the bright, airy hallway, Ilara bundling Athena into a carrier, when her phone, resting on the hall table, buzzed. Not a text, a news alert. She glanced at it. "Vance appeal denied. Jacob Vance, former tech CEO, transferred to FCI Otisville to serve remainder of 8-year sentence." Ilara froze. The motion of zipping the carrier ceased. The boisterous energy in the hallway evaporated, sucked into a sudden, cold vacuum. Sebastian noticed first. "Lara, what is it? Is it the Al Jamil account? Did the seller kick back?" Alexander was instantly alert, his CEO face snapping on. "Is someone threatening to sue? Get legal on the—" "No," Ilara said. Her voice was quiet. She didn't speak again. She just picked up the phone and turned the screen towards them. The 3 men read the alert. Their reactions were a perfect portrait of their personalities. Mark let out a short, cold scoff. "Otisville. Good. He'll hate the food. It's notoriously inefficient." Sebastian just nodded, a grim, final look of satisfaction on his face. "The system works." Alexander, however, didn't look at the phone. He watched his sister. He didn't care about Vance. He cared about her. Ilara stared at the screen. At the name, Jacob Vance. It was like reading about a stranger, a character in a bad novel she'd read years ago. She thought of the woman she had been, the woman who would have crumpled at this news, either in renewed despair or in a surge of vindictive triumph. She felt neither. She felt distance. It was the last page, the last sentence. The book was closed. With a steady hand, she pressed her thumb to the screen, held the notification, and tapped, "Clear." It slid away, vanishing. She took a deep breath, the air clean and smelling of her new life, and finished zipping Athena's carrier. "The park," she said, her voice steady and clear. They stepped out onto the sun-drenched, tree-lined street. The contrast to the armored escalade, the oppressive silence of the penthouse, the toxic air of the VIP lounge, was absolute. She wasn't a prisoner in a glass tower. She was a mother on a public street, surrounded by life, surrounded by the chaotic, powerful, loving loyalty of her family. She looked at her brothers, who were already bickering over who got to push the aerodynamic, carbon fiber stroller first. She looked at Athena, who was giggling at the dappled sunlight filtering through the leaves. Ilara had been born into an empire of finance, tech, and property. She had been married into a lie. She had been broken in a moment of public humiliation. But she wasn't just saved. She was forged. The mistress hadn't tried to kick out a wife. She had tried to kick out a Kingsley. And in doing so, she had reminded Ilara what that name truly meant. It wasn't just a legacy of wealth. It was a legacy of survival, of strength, and of building something new from the ashes. Ilara Kingsley smiled, adjusted her sunglasses, and led her family toward the park. She was no longer just a part of an empire. She was building her own. In the end, it wasn't about the money or the affair. It was about power. Chloe and Jacob thought they had it, but they had only borrowed it. Ilara was born with it. She just had to remember. She didn't need a prince to save her. She had brothers who were kings. And most importantly, she found the strength to become a queen in her own right, building a new life for herself and her daughter, Athena. What did you think of the brothers' ultimate revenge? Was it too harsh, or was it exactly what Jacob and Chloe deserved? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. If you loved this story of drama, betrayal, and ultimate triumph, please hit that like button, share this video with someone who loves a good revenge story, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel for more true life stories every single week. We'll see you in the next one.
Everyone told Serena Vance to fight. They told her to scream, to sue, to burn Marcus's empire to the ground for what he did. But when the divorce papers slid across the mahogany table, Serena didn't scream. She didn't even cry. She just signed and vanished. The tabloids called her the discarded wife. They painted her as weak. But they forgot one thing in the world of the elite: silence isn't surrender. It's a strategy. 2 weeks later, a single photograph surfaced that terrified her ex-husband and changed everything. This is the story of the woman who walked away with nothing, only to reveal she already owned it all. The conference room on the 42nd floor of Sterling and Lockwood smelled of lemon polish and intimidation. It was a cold, glass-walled aquarium designed to make anyone sitting on the guest side feel small. Serena Vance sat with her hands folded in her lap. She wore a simple navy dress, perhaps a season or two old, and no jewelry. Across from her sat Marcus Sterling, the man she had been married to for 12 years. He was looking at his watch. "Serena, let's not make this harder than it needs to be," Marcus said, his voice smooth, the same voice he used to charm venture capitalists and charm the pants off his 24-year-old assistant Tiffany. "The prenup is ironclad. You know that. Arthur has explained it." Arthur Pendleton, the family lawyer who had attended their wedding, looked down at his files, unable to meet Serena's eyes. "The terms are standard, Mrs. Sterling. A lump sum of $2 million, the apartment in Connecticut, no alimony, no claim to the Sterling Tech shares." It was a pittance. Marcus had just made the Forbes list. His net worth was hovering around $900 million. $2 million was what he spent on his car collection last year. "And the NDA?" Serena asked softly. Her voice was steady, devoid of the tremors Arthur had expected. "Standard procedure." Marcus cut in, tapping his fingers on the table. "You don't talk about the marriage, you don't talk about the business, and you certainly don't talk about Tiffany. You take the money, you keep the house in the suburbs, and we both move on. I need this done by noon, Serena. I have a flight to Cabo." He was taking her to Cabo. Tiffany, the woman who had started posting Instagram stories from Serena's own kitchen while Serena was visiting her sick mother in Ohio. Arthur slid the document across the table. It was thick, heavy, with legalese that essentially erased 12 years of Serena's life. She had nursed Marcus through his first bankruptcy. She had hosted the dinners that wooed his biggest investors. She had proofread the code for his first algorithm when his eyes were too tired to focus. But the world didn't know that. The world just saw the quiet, plain wife who had aged out of her husband's bracket. Marcus pulled a Mont Blanc pen from his breast pocket, a gift Serena had bought him for their 10th anniversary, and held it out to her. "Here," he said, his tone dismissive. "Just sign it." Serena looked at the pen. Then she looked at Marcus. For a second, the air in the room went still. Marcus blinked, unsettled by the look in her eyes. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't anger. It was the look of someone watching a child play with a loaded gun. "I don't need your pen, Marcus," she said. She reached into her purse and pulled out her own. It was a vintage fountain pen, black lacquer with gold inlay. It looked old, expensive. Arthur Pendleton's eyes widened slightly when he saw it. He recognized the crest on the cap, but he couldn't quite place it. Serena flipped to the back page. She didn't read the clauses. She didn't ask for more money. She didn't ask for the dog. Scritch, scratch. She signed her name, Serena Vance. She dropped the Sterling immediately. "Done," she whispered. Marcus let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He let out a short, arrogant laugh. "Well, that was easier than I expected. I thought you'd... drama." "I don't do drama, Marcus. You know that," Serena said, She stood up, smoothing her skirt. I prefer results. Right. Marcus smirked, already texting Tiffany under the table. Good luck with the, quiet life, Serena. The check will be wired by morning. Serena walked to the door. She paused with her hand on the handle. She didn't look back at him. Make sure you check the date on the wire transfer, Marcus, and enjoy Cabo. I hear the weather turns quickly this time of year. She walked out. Marcus laughed, shaking his head. She's broken, he told Arthur. Totally broken. She didn't even fight for the Range Rover. Arthur didn't laugh. He was staring at the signature on the paper. The ink was still wet. Marcus, Arthur said slowly. Did you ever ask Serena about her family? Her real family? She's from Ohio. Her dad was a librarian or something. Why? No reason, Arthur muttered, closing the folder. Just that pen she used. I've only seen that crest once before, on a letterhead from the Banque Privée in Geneva. Marcus waved him off. She probably found it at an antique shop. She loves junk like that. I'm free, Arthur. I'm a free man. Marcus Sterling walked out of that office thinking he had just shed 130 pounds of dead weight. He had no idea he had just pulled the pin on a grenade that had been sitting in his lap for a decade. The next 3 months were a masterclass in public humiliation orchestrated by Marcus Sterling and Tiffany Rourke. Marcus didn't just move on, he broadcasted it. Tiffany, a 24-year-old influencer with a penchant for neon bikinis and tagging brands, moved into the penthouse Serena had decorated. The tabloids ate it up. Daily Mail headline, Out with the old, in with the bold, CEO Marcus Sterling debuts new fiancée weeks after quiet divorce. Page 6, Serena, who the ex-wife of tech mogul vanishes into suburbia. They paparazzi caught Serena once a week after the divorce loading groceries into a modest sedan in Connecticut. She looked tired. She wore sweatpants. The caption read, The sad aftermath of a billionaire's ex. Marcus laughed when he saw it. He was on his yacht, the Titan, docked in Monaco for the Grand Prix. Tiffany was dancing on the deck with a bottle of Dom Perignon streaming live to her 2 million followers. She looks pathetic. Tiffany giggled, zooming in on the photo of Serena on her phone. God, Marcus, how did you survive 10 years with that? She's so beige. I was charitable. Marcus grinned, taking a sip of whiskey. She was a placeholder, Tiff. You're the prize. But back in New York, the business was hitting snags. Small ones at first. Marcus's company Sterlotech was preparing for a massive merger with a European conglomerate, Omnicorp. It was the deal that would turn Marcus from a millionaire into a billionaire. But the due diligence meetings were going poorly. They're asking about the Vance protocol in the algorithm, his CTO David said during a frantic Zoom call. They want to know who wrote the core security patch. I did, Marcus lied smoothly. It's my code. They know it's not Marcus. The syntax is different. They're asking to speak to the original architect. They said the code signature matches an external contractor. Well, find the contractor and pay them off, Marcus snapped. We can't find them. The employee ID is just listed as SV from 2014. Marcus froze. SV Serena Vance. He shook his head. Impossible. Serena helped him with typos. She organized his files. She didn't write code. She had a degree in art history. She was a librarian's daughter. SV must have been some freelancer he forgot about. Just handle it, David. I'm in Monaco. Don't ruin my vibe. He hung up, annoyed. He needed a distraction. Babe, Tiffany yelled from the deck. Come look. Who is that? Marcus walked over. A massive super yacht was pulling into the slip next to them. The Titan was 150 feet long and impressive, but the boat pulling in eclipsed them. It was the Obsidian, a 300-foot floating palace owned by the Kensington family. The Kensingtons were old money. Not tech CEO money, real money. Railroad steel banking crowns. Victoria Kensington, the matriarch's granddaughter, was the it girl of the global elite. She didn't talk to press, she didn't do influencers, and she certainly didn't hang out with new money tech bros like Marcus. "That's Victoria Kensington," Marcus said, adjusting his sunglasses. "If we can get invited to their party tonight, the merger is in the bag. The Kensingtons own 15% of Omnicorp." "I'll DM her," Tiffany chirped. "You don't DM Victoria Kensington, you idiot," Marcus hissed. He watched as the gangway of the Obsidian lowered. Paparazzi on the shore were going wild, cameras flashing like strobe lights. First came the bodyguards. Then came Victoria Kensington, looking tall and icy in a white Chanel jumpsuit. And then walking right next to her, laughing arm in arm, was another woman. She was wearing oversized sunglasses, a wide-brimmed hat, and a dress that Marcus recognized from the cover of Vogue's September issue, a custom piece that hadn't even been released to the public yet. She carried herself with a regal posture that seemed familiar, yet foreign. "Who is that with Tori?" Tiffany asked, squinting. "Is that a model?" The woman turned to help Victoria with her bag. As she turned, the wind caught her hat, tilting it back. The sunlight hit her face. Marcus dropped his whiskey glass. It shattered on the teak deck. It was Serena, but not the Serena in sweatpants, not the Serena who sat quietly at dinner parties. This woman was radiant. Her hair was cut in a sharp chic bob. Her skin glowed. And on her wrist, glinting in the Mediterranean sun, was a Patek Philippe watch that cost more than the house Marcus had generously let her keep. "No," Marcus whispered. "That's impossible." Down on the dock, the paparazzi were screaming. "Victoria, Victoria, who is your friend?" Victoria Kensington stopped. She put her arm around Serena's waist and smiled at the cameras, a rare, genuine smile. She pointed at Serena. "This?" Victoria said, her voice carrying over the water to where Marcus stood frozen. "This is the woman who saved my portfolio. This is Serena, and we're going shopping." The shutters clicked 1,000 times a second. Serena looked up, straight up at the Titan. She saw Marcus. She saw Tiffany. She didn't wave. She didn't scowl. She just lowered her sunglasses, looked him dead in the eye, and gave a small, barely perceptible nod. Then she turned linked arms with the heiress and stepped into the waiting Rolls-Royce Phantom. Marcus's phone began to buzz. It was Arthur, his lawyer. "Marcus?" Arthur's voice was trembling. "I just got a call from the board of Omnicorp." "Not now, Arthur. I think I'm hallucinating." "Marcus, listen to me. The acquisition is on hold." "Why?" Marcus screamed, his eyes still fixed on the retreating Rolls-Royce. "Because Omnicorp just hired a new external consultant to audit your code. A silent partner." "Who?" "Serena Vance. The photograph didn't just circulate, it detonated. By the time Marcus managed to pick up the shards of his whiskey glass on the deck of the Titan, the image of Serena and Victoria Kensington was trending globally. Twitter X was ablaze. TikTok detectives were already dissecting Serena's outfit frame by frame. Who is the woman with Victoria Kensington? Is that the sad ex-wife from Connecticut? No way. Look at the posture. That bag is a Hermes Himalaya Birkin. You don't buy that. You are invited to buy that. Who is she really? In the master suite of his yacht, Marcus was pacing, his phone glued to his ear. Tiffany was sitting on the bed sobbing into a pillow, not because she was sad, but because she had lost 10,000 followers in an hour. The comments on her latest bikini post were brutal. "You're the downgrade, sweetie." "Arthur, find out what she's doing there." Marcus barked into the phone. "Is she working for the Kensingtons? Is she a nanny? A personal assistant?" "Marcus?" Arthur's voice was weary. "I called the Kensington family office. I tried to use your connection with the Omnicorp deal to get a read on the situation. They laughed at me." "They laughed?" "The chief of staff told me, and I quote, 'Ms. Vance is not a staff member. She is a guest of the family. and Mr. Sterling should focus on his own liquidity issues rather than his ex-wife's itinerary. Then they hung up. Marcus threw the phone onto the velvet duvet. She's doing this to spite me. She spent 12 years clipping coupons and watching Netflix, and suddenly she's Grace Kelly. It's a facade. She probably spent the entire divorce settlement on that one outfit. But deep down, a cold knot of dread was tightening in his stomach. He remembered the pen, the bank in Geneva, the way she had signed the papers without reading them. I don't do drama, Marcus. I prefer results. Meanwhile, 3 miles away at the Hôtel de Paris, the atmosphere was very different. The royal suite was a sprawling expanse of marble and gold leaf overlooking the harbor. Victoria Kensington was kicked back on a chaise lounge, still wearing her white jumpsuit, eating a club sandwich with her hands. Serena sat at the desk, her laptop open. The glamorous mystery woman vibe was gone. She was in work mode. She was typing rapidly, her eyes scanning streams of data that would make a Wall Street trader dizzy. "You broke the internet, Wren," Victoria said, wiping mayonnaise from her lip. "Marcus is calling my brother. He's calling my publicist. He's panicked." Serena didn't look up from the screen. He should be. His liquidity ratios are a mess. He's leveraged Sterlotech against his personal assets to fund the acquisition. If the Omnicorp deal stalls for more than 2 weeks, the banks will call in his loans. He'll be insolvent. Victoria shook her head admiringly. "You really are cold, you know that. The man dumped you for a walking spray tan and you're not even angry. You're just disassembling him, like a Lego set." Serena stopped typing. She swiveled her chair around. He underestimated the variable Vic. He thought he was the architect of his success. He forgot who built the foundation. Serena walked over to the balcony. The wind whipped her hair. She looked down at the harbor, spotting the Titan in the distance. It looked like a toy boat from up here. "Do you remember Zurich 2012? Serena asked. Victoria's playfulness vanished. She sat up. "I try not to." "Your father had just passed. The board was trying to push you out of Kensington Industries. They said you were too young, too inexperienced. They forged those emails to make it look like you were embezzling." "And everyone believed them," Victoria whispered. "Even my own uncles." "And I was the forensic accountant the board hired to nail you to the cross," Serena said. "I was supposed to find the dirt. But you didn't. I found the truth. I found the digital trail proving your uncle hired a hacker to plant the evidence. I could have handed it to the board and taken my paycheck. I was 26, hungry and broke. But I didn't. You came to me," Victoria said softly. "In the middle of the night. You gave me the drive. You saved my reputation. You saved my legacy. Because I hate bullies, Victoria. And I hate liars." Serena took a sip of sparkling water. "Marcus is both. For 12 years I played the role he needed. The supportive wife, the quiet partner. I ghost-wrote his code. I structured his shell companies to be legal. I smoothed over his PR disasters. I wanted a family. I wanted peace. I thought if I made him successful, we'd be happy." She turned back to the room, her eyes hard. "I was wrong. He didn't want a partner. He wanted an audience. And when he got bored of the applause, he fired me." Victoria stood up and walked over, placing a hand on Serena's shoulder. "So what's the play? You're the lead auditor for the Omnicorp merger now. You hold his fate in your hands. Do you kill the deal?" Serena smiled, and it was a terrifying expression. "Kill the deal, no. That's too easy. If the deal dies, he just goes bankrupt. He blames the market. He becomes a martyr." She walked back to her laptop and hit send. "I'm going to let the deal go through, but on my terms. I'm going to expose the Vance protocol. I'm going to show the world that the genius behind Sterlotech wasn't Marcus Sterling. It was the wife he discarded." The laptop chimed. A notification popped up. "To Board of Directors Omnicorp from S. Vance External Lead Auditor. Subject Due Diligence Report. Discrepancies in Sterlotech IP ownership." "Showtime," Serena whispered. 2 days later, Marcus was back in San Francisco. The vacation had been cut short. Tiffany was left in Monaco with his credit card, which had been declined twice at Prada, while Marcus flew private back to the war room. The headquarters of Sterlotech was a glass monolith in Silicon Valley. Usually Marcus walked in like a god. Today he walked in like a fugitive. He stormed into the boardroom. The entire executive team was there. David, the CTO, looked like he hadn't slept in a week. "Tell me this is a joke." Marcus slammed his briefcase on the table. "Omnicorp is demanding a code audit. They want to interview the original author of the core algorithm. I told you to fake it, David." "We can't," David stammered. "The auditor they hired, she's good. Too good. She flagged lines of code that we didn't even know existed. Hidden signatures. She says the IP doesn't belong to the company." "Who is she?" Marcus demanded. "Get her on a video call. I'll offer her double whatever Omnicorp is paying. Everyone has a price." "She's already here," a voice said from the doorway. Marcus spun around. Standing in the glass doorway was Serena. She wasn't wearing the couture dress from Monaco. She was wearing a sharp charcoal gray power suit, tailored to within an inch of its life. Her hair was slicked back. She held a leather portfolio, not the cheap plastic folder she used to carry his dry cleaning receipts in, but a custom Italian leather case. Behind her stood 3 lawyers Marcus recognized immediately. They were from Holloway & Finch, the most aggressive corporate litigation firm in New York. They were sharks, and they were walking behind Serena like she was the Great White. "Serena." Marcus breathed the color draining from his face. "What are you doing here, security?" "Security can't help you, Marcus," Serena said, walking into the room. The executives parted for her like the Red Sea. She took the seat at the head of the table, his seat. Marcus was too stunned to move. "Get out of my chair." "It's not your chair anymore," Serena said calmly, opening her portfolio. "As of this morning, Omnicorp has frozen the merger pending an investigation into intellectual property theft. And since your loan covenants require the merger to close by Friday, the bank has technically seized operational control of Sterlotech." She looked up at him. Her eyes were cold, professional. "I've been appointed by the bank and Omnicorp as the interim compliance officer. I'm in charge, Marcus." The room went dead silent. You could hear the hum of the server room down the hall. "You," Marcus sputtered, a vein throbbing in his forehead. "You're a housewife. You don't know anything about this business. You think you can just walk in here because you're sleeping with the Kensingtons?" Serena didn't flinch. She reached into her portfolio and pulled out a thick black notebook. It was battered, the spine cracked. Marcus froze. He recognized that book. He had seen it on her nightstand for years. He thought it was her diary. He thought she wrote poems or grocery lists in it. "Do you know what this is, Marcus?" she asked, tapping the cover. "Your diary," he sneered, trying to regain composure. "It's a ledger," she corrected. "The black ledger." She opened it to a page marked with a red tab. August 14th, 2016, system crash. The database was corrupted because you tried to cut corners on the server migration to save money for your Ferrari down payment. You called me crying, saying you were going to lose everything. Who fixed it? Marcus swallowed hard. You called tech support." "I was tech support, Marcus. I rewrote the database architecture in 4 hours while you slept off a panic attack. I logged it here." She flipped a page. November 2019. The scandal with the senator's daughter. "You thought it went away. It didn't go away. I negotiated the settlement. I structured the payments through a blind trust so it wouldn't trace back to the company. I saved your reputation. I logged it here." She flipped another page. "And the algorithm, the Sterling engine that this entire company is based on." She looked at David, the CTO. "David, bring up the source code for the core kernel. Line 405. David hesitated, then typed on his laptop. The code appeared on the giant screen behind Serena. "Read the comment line," Serena commanded. David squinted. It says, written by SV for MS. Happy anniversary. A collective gasp went through the room. I wrote the engine, Marcus, Serena said, her voice low and dangerous. I gave it to you as a gift for our 5th anniversary. But since I signed the divorce papers last week and the prenup specifically stated that I retain ownership of all personal creations prior to formal employment, and since I was never formally employed, she closed the book with a heavy thud. The engine belongs to me. You're trying to sell my property to Omnicorp. Marcus fell back into a chair, his legs giving out. This is fraud. You can't prove you wrote it. I just did, Serena said. And I have the original timestamps on my private server, which, by the way, I've already sent to the Omnicorp board. She stood up. The power in the room swirled around her. She wasn't the discarded wife. She was the Titan. Here's the deal, Marcus. You have 2 options. Option A, I sue you for IP theft, fraud, and breach of contract. The merger dies. The bank seizes your assets. You go to prison for misleading investors. And Tiffany leaves you because you'll be broke. And option B. Marcus croaked, his voice barely a whisper. Option B, Serena said, walking toward the door. You resign as CEO, effective immediately. You admit to health reasons. You sign over your voting rights to a trustee of my choosing. In exchange, I let the merger go through. You walk away with a payout enough to live comfortably, but nowhere near $1 billion. And you never ever say my name in public again. She stopped at the door and looked back. You have 1 hour to decide. I'll be in your office. Or rather, my office. She walked out. The lawyers followed. Marcus sat alone in the boardroom, surrounded by the executives who used to fear him, looking at the empty chair where his wife used to sit. He realized then that he hadn't just lost a wife. He had lost the engine that made him run. But Serena wasn't done. This was just business. The personal reckoning was still to come. Because there was one more name in the black ledger. A name that Marcus had kept hidden even from himself. A secret that connected Serena not just to the Kensingtons, but to a scandal that could bring down more than just a tech company. As Serena walked into the CEO's office, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Victoria Kensington. The Baron is landing in San Francisco tonight. He saw the news. He knows you're active again. Be careful, Wren. He's not like Marcus. He doesn't play by the rules. Serena looked out the window at the Silicon Valley skyline. A small, grim smile touched her lips. Good, she whispered. I'm tired of rules. Marcus Sterling was not handling his downfall with grace. 3 days after being ousted from his own company, he sat in a dim leather-booth corner of the Cavalier, a private club in San Francisco. He wasn't drinking his usual single-malt scotch. He was drinking vodka straight, and he was staring at his phone. The headlines were relentless. The Vance victory, how the ex-wife took the throne. Sterling stock soars 12% after leadership change. That was the knife in the gut. The market liked her better than him. It's a temporary correction, Marcus mumbled to the empty seat across from him. She'll crash it. She doesn't have the stomach for the big leagues. I wouldn't be so sure about that, Mr. Sterling. Marcus looked up. A man was standing by the booth. He was older, perhaps in his 60s, wearing a suit that whispered of Savile Row tailoring, navy wool perfectly cut. He leaned on a silver-tipped cane. His hair was silver swept back, and his eyes were a pale, watery blue that seemed to see right through Marcus's vodka haze. Who are you? Marcus slurred, trying to straighten his tie. I'm not taking pitches today. I'm not here to pitch, Marcus. I'm here to salvage, the man said. He didn't ask for permission. He simply slid into the booth. He signaled the waiter with a single raised finger. A bottle of the 82 Lafitte, and water for my friend. The man folded his hands on the table. My name is Elias Vane, but in certain circles in Europe they call me the Baron. Marcus blinked. The name rang a bell. Vane Logistics, Vane Heavy Industries, old dark money, the kind of money that moved governments. "What do you want with me?" Marcus asked, suddenly sobered by the man's aura. "I want what your wife stole from me," Vane said softly. "Ex-wife. And she didn't steal anything. She just embarrassed me." Vane chuckled, a dry rattling sound. "You think this is about your little app company? You think Serena Vance is just a housewife who learned to code, you poor, naive boy." Vane leaned in. The air around the table seemed to drop 10 degrees. 12 years ago, Serena Vance wasn't Serena Vance. She went by the handle, The Architect. She worked out of Geneva for a private intelligence firm, my firm. She didn't just write code, Marcus. She built the digital backdoors for the Swiss banking system. She created the encryption keys for half the offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Marcus stared at him, his mouth slightly open. "Serena, my Serena, she knits. She watches baking shows." "Cover," Vane spat. "Deep cover. She was the best asset I ever had. Until she grew a conscience. In 2012 she disappeared. Took a hard drive with her. The master key. A piece of code that can unlock the encryption of every major bank my clients use. I spent millions looking for her. I thought she was dead." Vane took a sip of the wine the waiter had just poured. "Then I see a photo of her in Monaco wearing a hat, laughing with that Kensington girl. And then I see her seize control of your company using a proprietary algorithm." Vane looked at Marcus with pity. "That Sterling engine she gave you for your anniversary, the code that made you rich, that was a watered-down, domesticated version of the master key. You've been sitting on a nuclear weapon for a decade and using it to sell targeted ads for sneakers." Marcus felt the room spin. It all made sense. The way she handled the complex legal documents. The way she learned languages so fast. The way she remained calm when the IRS audited them 3 years ago. She had fixed it in an afternoon. "She played me," Marcus whispered. "She hid in plain sight," Vane corrected. "She used you as a human shield, a boring, loud, ambitious man to distract the world while she lived a quiet life in the suburbs. But now she's out in the open. And I want my property back." Vane slid a black card across the table. It had no numbers, just a gold crest. "She has the drive. It's likely in that black ledger she carries. You are going to get it for me." "Why would I help you?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. "Because right now you are a laughingstock." Vane smiled cruelly. "Help me, and I will destroy her credibility. I will expose her criminal past. She will go to prison for corporate espionage, and you will get your company back, and a seat on my board." Marcus looked at the card. He thought about Serena sitting in his chair. He thought about the way she had looked through him. He picked up the card. "What do you need me to do?" Meanwhile, in the penthouse of the Fairmont Hotel, Serena was looking at the San Francisco Bay wrapped in a silk robe. Victoria was sitting on the couch reading the Wall Street Journal. "They're calling you the Iron Dove." Victoria laughed. Apparently stock analysts love a ruthless divorcee. Serena didn't smile. She was staring at the reflection in the window. "He's here, Vic." Victoria lowered the paper. "Who?" "Elias, I can feel it." "The Baron." Victoria stood up. "I thought he was just a rumor, a boogeyman you told me about." "He's real. And he's in the city. My firewall logged an intrusion attempt on the Sterlotech servers an hour ago. It wasn't a hacker script. It was a skeleton key signature. Only one person has that signature besides me." Serena turned around. She looked tired. The adrenaline of the takeover had faded, leaving behind the fear she had carried for 12 years. "He saw the code, Vic. When I exposed the Vance protocol to stop Marcus, I signaled my location. I rang the dinner bell for the wolves." "So we fight," Victoria said fiercely. "You have the Kensingtons behind you now. We have lawyers' security." "Elias Vane eats lawyers for breakfast," Serena said. "He doesn't want a lawsuit. He wants the black ledger. It contains the original source code for the master key. If he gets it, he can drain the accounts of his enemies. He can topple economies. That's why I stole it. That's why I ran." "So destroy it," Victoria said. "Burn the book." "I can't. It's the only leverage I have. If I destroy it, he kills me. As long as I have it, I'm dangerous." Serena walked over to the safe in the wall. She punched in a code, scanned her retina, and the heavy door hissed open. Inside sat the battered black notebook. "I have to finish this," Serena said, taking the book. "I can't run anymore. I'm not the librarian's daughter anymore." She looked at Victoria. "The Red Gala is tomorrow night at the De Young Museum. Everyone will be there, the press, the investors, and him. You think he'll try something at a museum gala? I think he'll try to corner me publicly. He likes an audience. He thinks fear works best in a crowd." Serena's eyes hardened. "But he forgot one thing." "What's that?" "He taught me everything I know, but I learned a few things from Marcus, too." Victoria raised an eyebrow. "From Marcus? What could that idiot teach you?" Serena smiled, a sharp, dangerous curve of her lips. "How to put on a show." The De Young Museum was bathed in crimson light. It was the night of the Red Gala, the most exclusive charity event of the San Francisco social calendar. Tickets were $50,000 a plate. The dress code was strict rouge. Marcus arrived early. He was wearing a burgundy velvet tuxedo that looked a little too flashy, a little too desperate. He wasn't on the guest list, but Elias Vane was, and Marcus was his +1. The humiliation of walking in as a guest to an event he used to sponsor burned, but he swallowed it. He scanned the room. It was a sea of red silk rubies and fake smiles. "She's not here yet," Marcus whispered into his lapel mic. "She likes an entrance." Vane's voice crackled in his ear. Vane was somewhere above in the VIP observation deck watching the chessboard. "Stick to the plan, Marcus. Get her alone. Get the bag." At 8:15 p.m. the room went silent. At the top of the grand staircase, Serena Vance appeared. She wore a gown of deep blood-red liquid satin that clung to her body like a second skin. It was backless, daring, and utterly commanding. Around her neck was a diamond choker that looked suspiciously like the Kensington Crown jewels on loan. But it was what she held in her hand that caught Marcus's eye. A small crystal-encrusted clutch, just big enough for a notebook. She descended the stairs flanked by Victoria Kensington and 2 massive bodyguards. The photographers went wild. Marcus stepped forward, his heart hammering. He had to get her away from the guards. "Serena!" he called out, putting on his best remorseful ex-husband face. Serena stopped. The crowd parted. She looked at Marcus with mild amusement. "Hello, Marcus. I see you kept the velvet tux. I always told you that color washed you out." "Can we talk?" Marcus pleaded loud enough for people to hear. "Just for a minute. I want to apologize. For everything. Please." Victoria moved to block him, but Serena held up a hand. "It's okay, Vic. Give us a moment." She stepped closer to Marcus. "You have 2 minutes." "Not here," Marcus whispered. "On the terrace, please." Serena studied him. She saw the sweat on his brow. She saw the earpiece in his ear. She knew. "Fine," she said. She walked with him to the glass doors leading to the sculpture garden. It was dark outside, the fog rolling in from the bay. As soon as the doors clicked shut, Marcus's demeanor changed. He stopped looking sad and started looking desperate. "Give it to me, Serena." "Give you what?" "The book, the ledger. I know what's in it. I know who you are. The architect." Serena didn't blink. She adjusted her shawl. "So Elias found you. I wondered how long it would take. Did he promise you the company back, or maybe a nice little island?" "He promised me my life back," Marcus hissed. "You ruined me. You lied to me for 12 years. I protected you." Serena snapped, her voice finally rising. "I kept you safe from my world. A world where people don't get sued. Marcus, they get erased. And now you've invited the devil to dinner. He's here, a deep voice said from the shadows. Elias Vane stepped out from behind a Rodin sculpture. He held a silenced pistol casually low at his side. "Hello, architect." Vane smiled. "You look ravishing. Red suits you. It hides the bloodstains." "Elias," Serena nodded, her pulse steady. "You're looking old. The Swiss winters must be harsh on your joints." "Enough banter," Vane said. "Hand over the clutch. I know the ledger is inside, the master key. And if I don't, then I shoot your ex-husband." Vane shrugged. "No great loss to the world, frankly, but then I shoot you, and I take it off your corpse." Marcus froze. "Wait, you said no violence? You said we'd just scare her." "You really are an idiot, aren't you?" Vane laughed. "There are no witnesses out here, Marcus, just fog." Serena looked at Marcus. She saw the terror in his eyes. Despite everything, the betrayal, Tiffany, the cruelty, she felt a pang of pity. He was just a pawn. "Let him go, Elias," Serena said. "This is between us." "The book first." Serena slowly lifted the crystal clutch. She opened it. Vane stepped closer, greedy anticipation lighting up his eyes. Marcus cowered against the glass door. Serena reached into the bag. "You want the master key?" she asked. "You want the code that controls the world?" "Give it to me," Vane demanded. Serena pulled her hand out. She wasn't holding a notebook. She was holding a detonator. "What is that?" Vane stopped. "You taught me, Elias. Always have a kill switch," Serena said coldly. "The ledger isn't in my bag. It's connected to a biometric server in the cloud. And if I press this button, or if my heart rate stops, the entire database deletes itself. The master key, the client list, the blackmail you have on half the G7 summit leaders, all of it. Gone. Forever." Vane's face went pale. "You wouldn't. That's your insurance." "I don't need insurance anymore." Serena stepped forward, forcing Vane to step back. "I have a life now. I have a name. I am Serena Vance, and I am done running." She held the detonator up. "So here is the new deal, Elias. You are going to turn around. You are going to walk out of here. You are going to get on your jet and go back to Geneva. And you are never going to look for me again. Because if you do, I won't just delete the code." She smiled, and it was the scariest thing Marcus had ever seen. "I'll publish it. I'll make the master key open source. I'll give every hacker in the world the keys to your kingdom. Imagine the chaos, Elias. You'll be broke and hunted by your own clients within an hour." Vane stared at her. He looked at the detonator. He looked at her eyes. He saw no hesitation. He lowered the gun. "You've changed, architect," he spat. "I evolved," she corrected. Vane holstered his weapon. He adjusted his cuffs. "This isn't over." "Yes," Serena said. "It is." Vane turned and vanished into the fog. Marcus slid down the glass door, sitting on the cold concrete, gasping for air. He was going to kill me." Serena looked down at him. She didn't offer him a hand. "Yes, he was. That's the price of admission to the big leagues, Marcus. You wanted to be a billionaire, that's what it looks like." Is it real?" Marcus pointed at the detonator. "Can you really destroy it all?" Serena looked at the device in her hand. Then she tossed it to Marcus. He caught it. It was a garage door opener, a generic clicker for a gate. "What?" Marcus stammered. "It opens the gate to the Kensington estate." Serena shrugged. Elias was always too paranoid for his own good. He believed it because he wanted the power to be that fragile. "You bluffed him," Marcus whispered in awe. "You bluffed the Baron." "I told you." Serena smoothed her red dress. "I learned how to put on a show from you." She turned to go back inside, back to the music and the lights. "Serena!" Marcus called out. She paused. "What happens to me?" he asked, his voice small. You have your payout, Marcus. Go to Cabo. Take Tiffany. Be quiet. Because if you ever try to come for me again, next time I won't use a garage door opener." She opened the glass doors. The warmth of the gala hit her. Victoria was waiting right there with 2 glasses of champagne. "Handled?" Victoria asked. "Handled," Serena said, taking the glass. "And Marcus." Serena looked back at the man sitting alone in the dark, clutching a garage door opener like it was a lifeline. "He's exactly where he belongs," Serena said. "In the past." 12 months later, the world looked very different. In a small rented condo in Boca Raton, Florida, Marcus Sterling sat on a beige microfiber couch. The air conditioning rattled, a stark contrast to the silent central climate control of his old penthouse. On the coffee table sat a half-eaten pizza and a stack of unpaid bills. Tiffany was gone. She had lasted exactly 3 weeks after the settlement money ran out. She was now dating a cryptocurrency promoter in Miami. Marcus picked up his iPad. He didn't have an assistant to screen his news anymore. He had to read it himself. He opened the Time magazine app. The Person of the Year issue had just dropped. The cover wasn't a politician. It wasn't a tech bro in a hoodie. It was 2 women standing back to back looking like the queens of a new world order. Serena Vance and Victoria Kensington. Headline: The Silent Partners. How V&K Security Saved the Global Banking System. Marcus stared at the photo. Serena looked ageless. She wore a white suit, sharp and clean. Her eyes held a secret that the camera only half caught. The article detailed their rise. After the Vance protocol went public, Serena and Victoria had launched Vance & Kensington, a boutique cybersecurity firm. Within 6 months, they had contracts with the Pentagon, the Swiss Federal Council, and ironically Omnicorp. They had bought Sterlotech for pennies on the dollar after the stock cratered. They stripped it for parts, fired the board that had ousted Marcus, and turned the headquarters into a non-profit coding academy for underprivileged girls. Marcus scrolled down to the interview section. Interviewer: Ms. Vance. Many people say your rise was an overnight success. You went from a divorcee to a billionaire CEO in under a year. What is your secret? Serena. It wasn't overnight. I spent 12 years building the foundation in the dark. People mistake silence for weakness. But silence is where you do your best work. While everyone else is shouting to be heard, the architect is quietly drawing the blueprints. Interviewer: And what about the rumors of your past, the Black Ledger? The Baron. Serena: My past is just data. I archived it. I'm focused on the future. Marcus closed the iPad. He felt a strange mix of bitterness and admiration. He realized now that he had never really known her. He had married a reflection of what he wanted to see, while the real Serena Vance was hiding behind the mirror holding the entire building up. He looked at the cheap pen on his table. It was a plastic ballpoint he got from the bank. He remembered the gold inlay fountain pen Serena had used to sign the divorce papers. The one with the crest. He finally Googled the crest. It was the coat of arms for the Order of the Sphinx, a civilian merit award given by the Swiss government for services to national security. She had been a hero before he even met her, and he had treated her like a servant. Well played, Wren, Marcus whispered to the empty room. Well played. Across the ocean, in a chalet in Gstaad, Serena stood on a balcony overlooking the snow-capped Alps. The air was crisp. Inside, a fire was crackling. Victoria was pouring vintage champagne. To the acquisition, Victoria toasted, raising her glass. We officially own the bank that refused to give you a loan 10 years ago. Serena smiled, clinking her glass. To the bank. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, battered black notebook. The Black Ledger. Are you finally going to burn that thing? Victoria asked. Elias is gone. He's retired to a private island with no internet access. You don't need the leverage anymore. Serena looked at the book. It contained the codes, the secrets, the evidence of a life lived in the shadows. "No," Serena said. She walked over to the bookshelf and placed the ledger between a copy of The Art of War and Pride and Prejudice. "I'm not burning it. I'm keeping it." "Why?" Serena turned back to the view, watching the sun set over the mountains she used to run through as a ghost. "Because it's a reminder," Serena said softly. "Never let anyone make you feel small again. And if they try—" She took a sip of champagne, her eyes gleaming with absolute unshakable peace. Show them who owns the ink." Serena Vance didn't just win the divorce. She won the war. She proved that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room isn't the one screaming, it's the one listening. She took the bricks her ex-husband threw at her and built an empire. It makes you wonder, who are the quiet people in your life, and are you underestimating them? If you enjoyed this story of betrayal strategy and the ultimate glow-up, please hit that like button. It helps the algorithm find more stories like this. And if you want to see more sagas about justice served cold, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell. I want to know your thoughts in the comments. If you were Serena, would you have saved Marcus from the Baron? Or would you have let him pay the price? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching, and remember, silence is a strategy.